And we're live. Andy Lefever, how are you?
I'm doing good, Nick. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. And this is Doing My Best with Nic Consani. That's me. And like I said, we have Andy Lefever here. Why don't you give us a brief introduction, who you are, what you do, that kind of thing.
Sure. And is this your first episode here, Nick?
This is the first recording of an episode. That's it.
Well, congratulations, and thank you for having me on here for your first one.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you definitely are somebody who's impacted my life in a positive way. We moved here only a few years ago, and immediately we became friends. And I look up to you for so many different things that we'll get into. And so, yeah, great guest to have.
My pleasure. Well, my name is Andy Lefever. I am a resident here of Lancaster City, and I am a magisterial district judge for my job, which means I am essentially the neighborhood judge here in the part of town where you live and where I live.
There you go. So I'm a little, I'm protected. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's awesome. And, I know you and your family have been in Lancaster for a long time. How long have you been here in your family?
The Lefevers have been in Lancaster County for hundreds of years. We still have our land grant that William Penn granted our family. So
cool.
We were here before this was the United States, essentially.
Wow. And what did your family do when they were here?
Farmers, like most people in Lancaster County, blue collar workers pretty much the whole way through.
Yeah. Did they supply produce to like the downtown? We have the farmers market that's been open since 1730. Did they supply produce and stuff downtown? I
have no idea.
Yeah.
they very well may have.
No, I think that's really cool. That was one of the things that attracted me to Lancaster is so many people here have been here for such a long time and have that rich history. I grew up north of Virginia and my parents moved here from California and then Italy before that. So I loved that tradition.
Sure.
How has that impacted your life, that long-standing tradition?
I mean, this has always been my home here, and it just it's a really nice place to live. And, my family, my brother especially, it's like there was a major reluctance on our part to ever really want to leave, leave our neighborhood from where we grew up. And I went to school in Philadelphia and then law school in Mississippi, but ultimately came back here to Lancaster because it's in my blood. It's my home, and I can feel that this place is my home.
Yeah, definitely. And it shows through all the work you do in the community. I mean, so did that longstanding tradition, did that have an impact on you going into being a lawyer, becoming a judge in the area? And talk about that a little bit.
I think part of it did. My immediate family, I was the first one to graduate from college. So there's really no lawyers around me and my family that would make me want to get into the law. So I think I was just always drawn toward reading and writing, and it just kind of made sense to me to do that. And I think initially I might have been attracted to kind of like, not the clout, but like the esteem that's associated with the law and being a lawyer. But I quickly found out that service was really where I would have been the most effective. And, I was a district attorney here in Lancaster as my first job out of law school. And I did that for 5 years. And, that is not the glamorous.
Yeah, that's in the trenches.
Right, that's in the trenches.
Yeah.
You're in court every day, and it's rough. It's a rough job. But I was able to really feel like I was serving the place where I'm from and where I live, and that was really important to me to do.
Yeah, definitely. And you said service. That was one of the things that drew you to it. Can you elaborate more on kind of what maybe service means in your life to you?
Sure.
How do you enact that in your life?
I mean, the way I look at it is we all have to live here, right? I mean, that's just a reality. So the place where we choose to make our home, I think that we need to make it not just livable, but a place where we want to be. And that means making it safe, And then beyond that, making it a place where art and culture are able to thrive, because that's what kind of makes Lancaster, I think, a very unique place to live. That there's a lot of culture, and there's a lot of opportunity to be exposed to art and culture for a town the size that it is.
Yeah.
So I found myself, professionally, okay, so I was working doing the public safety thing as a district attorney, and now as a judge. But extracurricular, I wanted to kind of enhance the more cultural side of Lancaster. So I'm on the board at the Longs Park Amphitheater Foundation, where we put on, over the summer, we put on weekly free concerts at Longs Park, variety of types of music.
Always a ton of fun.
Yes,
Great
very,
food.
very fun. And
Ice
lots
cream.
of food trucks. People love that.
Yep.
And then over Labor Day weekend, there's a giant art show that Longs Park hosts as well. And it's a city park, so this is something right in our neighborhood that is just, nationally recognized as having an excellent art show and free concerts every week. And it's really a blessing to be able to have this right in our backyard and to be able to be involved in it as intimately as I am.
Yeah, definitely. And thank you for doing all of that, for everybody in Lancaster to be able to participate in those things. That's, again, something that I loved about Lancaster coming here. It felt like everybody was a part of the community. Everybody had a hand in making all of these activities, and restaurants and bars and concerts, making all of these things happen.
It's a small town.
Yeah.
It is. The more you get involved, the more you see that it's the same people who are involved in everything. So you really get to know the people who share the same values as you.
That's
and
true.
You get to know them because you are around them all the time, because they're doing a lot of the same things you are at the same places you're doing it. And it's really fun because it's kind of organic, and the way you make friends is the people you spend time with.
Yeah. And in that community, there has to be an aura of positive impact. Everybody in there wants to make a positive impact on their lot, on somebody else's life, but they're probably also going through things themselves. Like, talk about kind of what that's like, everybody being human and dealing with things on their own, but everybody coming together and, trying to positively impact other people's lives.
I mean, and that's a really good question, but especially in the kind of lines of work that I've been in with a prosecutor and now as a judge, it's a lot of, it seems like it's a project that really never ends.
Yeah.
There's just endless cases and endless files, and you have to keep going. Yeah. And especially with this position now, but also as when I was a lawyer, every case, the case that's in front of you, it has to be the most important case that you have. And that's where your mind has to be. But it's kind of, it's a revolving door, it feels like sometimes.
Yeah.
So, if you can find something outside of work that is a kind of finite project, right? Weekly free concerts.
Yeah.
Concert starts, or you set up for the concert, it starts, it happens, it ends, you break it down, then it's over. It's like there's a progress that you can track.
Yeah.
And it really is satisfying to be able to do that. I've found myself professionally in more of an academic field where I'm doing a lot of writing and reading and thinking, but not a lot of physical work.
Yeah.
So I try really hard outside of work, especially in my volunteer work, to find more physical, things to do where there's a clear beginning, middle, and end, and then it stops.
Yeah.
Because you have to have that balance, or you'll drive yourself crazy.
And that time you can pat yourself on the back and say, I did it, right?
And pat the backs of the people around you, because it's everybody's there volunteering their time. It's a totally volunteer board at Longs Park. So, it's a ton of work.
And at Mustard Park as well, right?
Yep. Yes. Ton of work, huge time commitment. But at the end of it, there's a real sense of like, we got through it again, and it's very, very rewarding. It's very rewarding.
Definitely. And that, I'm sure that rewarding feeling kind of sticks with you longer than, something that takes a short amount of time to accomplish, this big project that you complete in a community.
It really keeps me coming back to it. I mean, I think I've been on this board for 5 or 6 years now at this point. And, when you're in the middle of the summer, it can be like kind of a slog. You're like, why am I doing this? It's every Sunday essentially is done. Like the whole Sunday.
Which we love. I mean, as just a citizen, I love that it's every Sunday. It's consistent.
Yeah.
Every Sunday I have something to go do before the week starts again. It's kind of, I like finishing the week with that.
But it's like the hours are like 3 p.m. to 10 for me.
Yeah.
So it's a huge commitment for me and for my partner, Diana, who's kind of on her own Sundays to cover a lot of the house stuff that needs to get done. So, when you're in the middle of it, it can be kind of annoying, but it's all serving a larger project that we are all pulling in the same direction for. So when it's done and when it's completed, it's great. It's you're elated that you were able to do it again. And so many people enjoy this thing and are it makes their summer, especially the art show.
Yeah.
And to be a part of something that big, it's just very rewarding.
And it's been going on for how many years now?
We just had our 60th year of the amphitheater, and the art show's been going nearly as long. So it's...
And think about all those kids who every summer get to go there, have those memories of concerts and stuff that they get to spend outside. And
I mean, when I was a kid, my parents would take me to Long's Park to see the concerts.
Yeah.
And it was great. As a kid, it was great. And you don't really have any idea about the kind of logistics that go into something like that. But, I do now, and it makes me appreciate it that much more. It really does.
Yeah, definitely. And you talked about something that I think kind of relates back to the whole purpose of this podcast, to kind of what I want to be talking about and kind of help other people maybe learn a little bit about, is that process of it keeps coming through your desk, the files keep coming through, it never ends. But there's an end goal, there's a time when you're going to feel that reward. But like you said, in the midsummer lull, you kind of forget that reward, right? That reward, that feeling that you get at the end, kind of, it feels so far away. So what's your process like, maybe personally and professionally, maybe if it's different, what's your process like trying, sticking with it and getting to that end goal?
I think, separating my identity from my job was helpful to me. Because,
what do you mean by that? Yeah.
Because I think it's very easy to become your what you do as work. Okay, like you meet someone at a cocktail party or something. Like, one of the first things, unfortunately, that we ask people is like, what do you do? What do you do for a living? And I really have tried hard to not make that the first thing that I tell people about myself, because I don't think that's the most important thing about me.
But it's such a cool thing. I mean, you're a judge.
It
like
is a cool thing.
To me, that's like when you come over, I have a party or something, that's the first thing I tell people. Sure. I'm like, that's my judge friend. They're like, whoa, I've never met somebody in a role like that,
It's just, separating like the ego from this job, I think, is the most important part of it. Because if you get too up your own ass about being a judge, you can kind of, I think, become kind of arrogant, and you kind of lose sight of the service that this is. I am a public servant. I serve my community, which is the voters of the northeast section of Lancaster City. Those are the people who I work for, right? So certainly I need to make decisions and I need to make rulings that impact people and that people have to follow. But I have to always remind myself that I serve this community. And if I have the ability to make someone's life easier, I will do it. And that, I think, is how I'm able to keep going when things can kind of get a little repetitive and sloggy. Because it is, I mean, I see people not necessarily on their best days.
Yeah.
You know, it's people who are getting evicted, or people who are trying to evict a tenant, or people who are charged with a crime, or people who are a victim of a crime. And, you know, it's not necessarily a job where you are surrounded by positivity.
Yeah.
So finding the little glimmers of hope and the little glimmers of light by easing the burden for somebody when I'm able to, or, you know, I do a lot of weddings, stuff like that. It's like you have to make the positive. It doesn't just happen organically, especially in this job. It's like it can be kind of a parade of misery unless you find a way to make it impactful in a positive way. And I think that's what you have to do it, or you just get depressed.
Yeah, no, I definitely. I mean, I'm in a sales role, and that, you know, obviously gets challenging, constantly having to go back, call these people, email out, try to meet new people online. Or
I don't think I could ever do that.
It's definitely, it beats you down at times, but like you said, you have to find the positive, find the small glimmers of conversations that you have with people that are great, and the people that you meet along the way that do kind of keep you going. And
so what do you do to not get slogged down?
You know, sometimes it's really challenging. I think sometimes I have a hard time with it, and I find myself getting slogged down or getting beat down, beating myself up because I want to be successful and I care. And I think that's some of, maybe I remind myself that this anxiety that I put on myself sometimes, this responsibility to be successful, it's because I care.
Yeah.
So I think instead of making it such a bad thing that maybe I put all this pressure on myself, it means that I know I'm capable. I know I'm, you know, ready for something bigger. And, you know, sometimes I have to get out of my own way, you know, and I'm the thing that's kind of blocking me from getting to that next position or to getting to that next place of happiness, you know, is that I'm in my own way. And sometimes, like this podcast, I just have to give it a chance, you know, and just maybe there's something here. And, you know, I have great people that also, you know, are on similar journeys to me, and, you know, that positively impact my life. And I think we can maybe talk about that for other people, and, you know, we'll be able to relate that. Yeah, I feel that, you know, some days are crap, and I work really hard to make that day seem positive, but at the end of the day, like this donut, it's still crap. Yeah. You know, you can dress it up, you can put pink frosting on it and sprinkles, but at the end of the day, it's still bad for you, you know. And I think that's what we try to do for life, is just keep trying to make it positive and do our best and just go at every day, you know, with that tenacity. And some days you just, you know, you don't win, but as long as you have that wake up every day and I'm going to attack today and do my best to make today as good as it can be, I think that's all we can do, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So you said kind of being humble is one of the ways that you stay positive or get to that end goal. You said just, you know, keeping that positive impact in mind and that service to others.
Yeah.
I love the way you think about, like you said, you're a servant to the public. You know, you're I don't know if all judges kind of think that way. And I think, like you said, maybe they get caught up in the ego or their ability to make these really big decisions, and they forget that, wait, I came here to, you know, make a positive impact in somebody's life. Like you said, I see people on their worst day. And I think that's such a great line as a judge, that to remember that I'm seeing you on your worst day. You know, you're better outside of here, and you could be a better person.
I mean, one thing that I was able to do, I think, and this is such a low bar for what I'm about to say, but I was finding that, and this was when I was running for judge, something that I was hearing from a lot of folks, that, you know, our office is open from 8:30 to 4 p.m., right? And that's basically the hours of the judge's throughout the county of Lancaster.
Yeah.
The courthouse, essentially. Mm-hmm. And if you have a job during the day, you are not able to come in and talk to me unless you miss work, miss time on work. So,
which for some people just isn't doable whatsoever.
It's not, or there's childcare issues or whatever.
Yeah.
So what I was able to do with the help and permission of the president judge of Lancaster County, Judge David Ashworth, who's a very good man, he allowed me to once a month have hours where we're open until 7 p.m. So if someone can come after work and then come to my office and talk to me and have, warrants lifted or go get on a payment plan or plea on a case or whatever, like they will have access to the court when no other courts are open. And, I've been doing this since April of 2023, so last April. And, it hasn't taken off huge, but every month there's 3 or 4 people who come in and they are so happy that they are able to come in and not have to miss work.
Yeah.
And it's such a small gesture and such a small thing to offer, but I think it really helps people. And that's something where every month, at least once a month, it's the last Wednesday of every month, I'm sitting in there with my staff who, God bless them, agrees to stay late. And I give them, some comp time or some flex hours, and then I buy everybody dinner that night. But they still essentially are voluntarily doing this because there's no way I could force them to.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We're able to together make life a little easier for somebody who needs to have their business heard by the court. And that's a guaranteed monthly way for me to be like, okay, I'm doing something.
Yeah.
I'm not just,
love that,
yelling into the void. This is actually making at least one person who's in here tonight, their life a little easier.
Yeah.
And that makes it kind of worth it to me.
Very cool. I love that. And so for myself and maybe other people who don't understand the challenges people face and why that's important, do you mind elaborating a little bit on just like why is something like that important?
Yeah. So I guess I'll just kind of explain a hypothetical so you can understand kind of what's going on here. So let's say a citizen of my jurisdiction, so the northeast of Lancaster City, right? Mm-hmm. They get a parking ticket. Okay. And then the ticket blows off their car or they move or whatever, and they never get the summons that's sent to them in the mail, or they never get an opportunity to just pay the ticket for whatever reason. Okay, so after a certain amount of time, they will get a letter from my office saying, hey, we have not heard from you on this. If you do not enter a plea in a certain amount of time, we will have to issue what's called a failure to respond warrant. Okay. And if they have moved or something and the mail comes back, it's like that warrant's going to have to get issued. This is like the state of Pennsylvania monitors our offices very closely to make sure that these things are happening on time. So a warrant will get issued. Okay. So someone may be walking around and have no idea that they even have a warrant out for their arrest. Now, because these are summary warrants we're talking about right now, it's not like the cops are going to bust into their house or bust into their work and arrest them. Like, that's not what happens. But they are on a list, and a constable, who are elected officials who live in our community, part of their job is finding people who have warrants and bringing them to the judge whose warrant it is to be seen. So they either need to enter a plea, right? And if they enter a guilty plea, they'll we'll fine them, and then they'll either pay the fine or they'll get on a payment plan.
Yep.
And if they enter a not guilty plea, then it gets scheduled for a hearing. Okay, so let's say that they get picked up by a constable, they're brought into my office, they plead not guilty, then it gets scheduled for a court date. So if they come to court or they're found guilty or whatever, I usually will put people on a like $25 a month payment plan, right? And
which for most people that would
well,
be reasonable and helpful.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
And I mean, the amount of people who just, for whatever reason, do not pay it or get behind or whatever. I mean,
don't look at me. I've never done that before.
And look,
I have.
It absolutely has. It's most of my job, not most of my job, but a lot of my job is seeing folks who have cases that are a couple years old who have still not paid them off yet. And then I need to talk to them like, okay, like, how are we going to get this paid?
Yeah.
But like, until they come in and talk to me or pay what they owe, like that warrant isn't lifted. So somebody who has a job, right, during the day and is working, because we want people to be working.
Yeah.
If they wanted to come see me to get that warrant lifted, they would need to miss work or come in over lunch or something. Doesn't work for some people. But if they're able to come in and see me after work, right, at like 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, they can come and see me, have their warrants lifted, and not miss any work or any hours or anything they have to do during the day. And that really, makes it easier for folks. And there's a lot of people who have warrants. I mean, it's normal. But
the parking authority, it's challenging here. If you live in the city, there's not a lot of houses that have parking. Like my house, I have street parking.
I do too.
And which I'm always glad about. This is the challenge. It's like, I'm glad they have the street cleaning. Yeah. Love the street cleaning. Our city is really clean. When you walk around, it's really nice. There's not a ton of leaves everywhere, and we're the city of trees, so there should be. Mm-hmm. There isn't. Not a lot of trash and stuff. But it really hurts the people who live in the city because they're the ones getting ticketed for the street cleaning and having to move side to side. So I don't know what the answer is there. I know
it's
bigger than us, but it's that is the challenge. But that's really cool.
I think my office has this year we had over 7,000 parking cases. Yeah. Seriously. So that we were in the 7,000s as far as files for parking.
Jeez.
It's a busy area. And
I wonder how many of those are city residents, or people that live in the city, pay, taxes in the city, that kind of thing. So it's challenging because like I said, I want the street cleaning, don't want the ticket, but so no, I think your process of keeping positive and getting to the end, kind of dealing with that adversity when it gets hard, is really admirable. And obviously something I admire you about is how you deal with your stress, as I'm sure the role of a judge having such an impact on other people's lives gets really stressful. Just and how do you balance that? Like, you go to work and some days are more stressful than others, but you're having that really strong impact on other people's lives. And then you kind of have to go home and just, not remember maybe you put somebody in jail that day, or not, had to do something maybe you didn't want to do because you're human and you're an awesome guy. And so explain that mindset and how you kind of,
I mean, that's probably twofold, I would think. So regarding the tough decisions that I have to make, that I have to do it, regularly. Like, evicting someone from their home is like one of the worst things that has to happen. Yeah. But it's the law. Yeah. If certain things happen, or setting bail for somebody who is alleged to have committed a violent crime, it's like this person is presumed innocent, right? Mm-hmm. But because of a decision or because of an evaluation that I made or any judge makes, you're determining that this person is a threat to the community. So you are putting them in jail before they're found guilty of anything. Yeah. For the safety of the community, or because you think they're not going to show up for court. Mm-hmm. So these are decisions that absolutely impact people's lives, and it can impact people's lives negatively too. Yeah. Especially, I think, the district judges, because they really see the nitty-gritty, and this is like every day they have to make these decisions. Yeah. So part of the job itself is being able to do that. Like, if you can't do that every day to some degree and be able to go home and continue living your life,
Yeah.
you're in the wrong job.
Well, and your first role as well. I mean, that
yeah.
was probably. So did you know that going in? Did you like prep yourself for that going into these roles?
So, I mean, as a district attorney, I found myself doing, domestic violence prosecution and special victims unit prosecution, which was, sexual assaults and whatnot, and crimes against children. And that really, like, I took that home with me. Like,
how could you not? That's
and the work never stopped.
Yeah.
Never stopped. And, the nature of that job is your reward for working hard is more work.
Yeah.
And, I just realized that I was not meant to be a career prosecutor.
Yeah.
Like, I did 5 years there, and
5 years, I'm sure, felt like a lifetime.
It did, and it went, but it flew past too, and it went. I just was able to know myself and know that this is not something that I can continue doing. So I need to either get a new job, or fix what was ailing me and do this job better. And I was fortunately able to get elected to judge and get a new job. And this job, I think I am much better suited to. This feels like something that I could do as a career.
Yeah.
I got elected in 2019, and I started in January of 2020, and now it is January of 2024. So 4 years later, and I'm only getting better at the job because I'm really starting to get the hang of like, being able to cut through kind of the fog of learning the job and getting right to the heart of, okay, what needs to happen and when and how is this going to screw up the least amount of people's lives, if that's something I'm able to do. And sometimes it's not.
And that's something you have to do on a daily basis,
Yes.
is think about how you're not going to screw up so many people's lives.
So I think the second part of that is, we have, first it's like just being cut out for the job. Either you are or you aren't.
Yeah.
Some people couldn't do it. But even as someone who I think I'm able to do this job and I can do it pretty well, there's still an element of, getting kind of caught in your own head about it. And I think that's really where finding things outside of your job to do comes into it. Like, if your whole identity is wrapped up in what you're doing, right, and you start to not like it, or you start to kind of doubt yourself a little bit, which is totally a normal thing that happens,
I've been
then
there.
you're doubting your whole identity and your whole idea of who you are as a person and as a human. And that can get really scary.
Yeah.
And if you're able to support your identity with other pillars, extracurricular work, volunteer work, suddenly what you do for a living and what sends you money every month becomes less of a whole portion of who you are and just more of a shade of you.
Yeah.
And once that happens, you can say, okay, this was rough today, right? But I have this thing coming up this weekend that I am looking forward to.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be able to, take that bad experience I had at work and completely overshadow it with, we have a concert on Sunday, or there's a huge art show coming up, or like I'm doing my buddy's wedding this weekend. Like, there's so many other things that you can use to build yourself as a human other than your work. And I think that is one of the biggest things that a person can do to make themselves happy and to find positivity.
Yeah. And, all of these things that you do out in the community, I've definitely haven't hung out with a group of friends that is so involved in the community like you and Diana are. And that's always something I've looked up to. And I think my hesitation sometimes that way I get in my own way is I think that if I'm doing all of these other things, then I'm less dedicated to my work. But my work is what's kind of stressing me out or is being too much. And so I'm in this weird battle of, I don't want to take time away. I should be spending more time on work, but then I'm not doing anything else. So, that's just kind of...
Yeah, and then the work that you're doing might not be as good because you're burning yourself out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You need to take time away and do something else. And then you can come back to work. I mean, I don't want to say refreshed because we only get a 2-day weekend, but you come back at least having done something different where you're like, okay, now this is something different again. And you're kind of reset for the week. I think it's very helpful.
Yeah, I agree.
And, I also read a lot, and I also, talk to a therapist every other week. So there's a lot of things that I do to try to keep on the plane of positivity that I want to be on.
Yeah. And like you said, that I want to be on, right? Sometimes it takes work to get there. So you have to put in the work to get to this place of positivity or happiness that you're looking to get to. And I think that work is worth it, right? Sometimes we put a lot of work maybe into what other people want us to do or our job and all these things. And we forget to take care of ourselves and put that effort and that work and time into making ourselves happy and feeling refreshed so that you can go back to work on Monday and be ready to go.
And this time of year, I mean, again, it's January, and it's especially hard this time of year because there's very little daylight and the weather kind of stinks and it's just very easy to do nothing.
Yeah, especially here. I mean, it feels like every day is overcast in Lancaster. I mean,
and sometimes, and I think this is true, like in the winter or like this time of year, like doing nothing and hibernating sometimes is what your body needs to do. And that's what we need to do. And there's nothing wrong with sitting around and doing nothing.
Yeah.
And watching Netflix. Like, that's what you need sometimes.
I sadly don't have Netflix anymore. They changed their stuff, and I don't have access to it anymore because we were all sharing an account, and now I don't have access to it. So I have no idea what's going on in Netflix.
There's not really anything good on it anyway. But the point is, like, sometimes hibernating is fine.
Yeah.
Perfectly fine. Especially this time of year, which I think nature is doing it, and that's what we should be trying to reflect. Like, we're part of nature, if you're eating foods this time of year that are like, so you're supposed to eat in winter, like, potatoes and stuff, like that's what nature intended.
Yeah.
And then in the spring, we come out rested and fresh from hibernation and ready to be reborn.
Love that.
I think it's the way to do it. If you're mimicking nature, I think it's a good way to live.
There you go. I think so too. So I liked what you talked about. You touched on you weren't happy in your first role, and you then went through the election process and got elected for judge. Mm-hmm. I think there's probably a lot of people who are in that same process of like, I'm in a role I don't like. It's kind of killing me in a way. How did you come out of that and find this new opportunity that it seems like was kind of made for you? Being a judge, it feels like you. When I look at you, it feels so natural to you. And so how did you find something that felt so natural to you, that was maybe that you were meant to do, kind of thing?
I mean, I think first I just want to note that it's not that I was unhappy, because I loved that job. Mm-hmm. I really did. I just saw, the work I was doing, and I just was able to acknowledge that I'm not thriving here. Mm-hmm. I was perfectly happy. Yeah. I was perfectly happy. It was my first job. I mean, I was thrilled to be there. But by the end, I just was like, it wasn't even like dread on Sunday. It just was like, I guess it just was like an anxiety of like, okay, well, like how am I going to do all this that I need to do to do the job right? And I think by the end, it was like, I wasn't able to do the job to the degree that I wanted to be able to do it, to feel like I was doing a good job.
Yeah. And being successful at your job is awesome.
Yeah.
You know, when you are doing well, when you feel like you're making a positive impact in your job community, and that does feel great. You know,
I just didn't feel like I was thriving. So I guess I spoke to the judge who was in my office before me and kind of expressed my interest to her that, you know, if you ever decide you don't want to run again, I might be interested in running. And she was, you know, very encouraging and, you know, said that she thought I would do a good job. And, you know, that was nice to hear. And then it kind of just was on the back burner for a while until, I guess, another judge told me that she was going to retire before her term was up. And she wasn't going to run again. So for a while there were kind of visiting judges, senior judges who were covering her cases for her. But, you know, she said she wasn't running again. And I was like, well, then I got to do this. I got to throw my hat in.
Yeah. What was going through your mind before you told her that you wanted to do it? Because then it's kind of, you're putting it out there, right? Then it's like, okay, this could really happen.
I don't think it really became real to me until I learned she wasn't running again. Because then it's like, all right, this is open now.
Yeah.
Who knows? I mean, if someone gets elected judge, they could be in this seat for 20 years.
Yeah.
And this is my opportunity. And I saw an opportunity there and I went for it. You know, I was a Democratic committee person in Lancaster City prior to this. So, you know, I was kind of involved in politics at the city level, and I just knew I had to do it. I'm like, this is my shot to get this job. And it was a very long process. You know, I had never run for office before, and it was absolutely eye-opening.
Yeah, I bet.
It was absolutely eye-opening.
And you said seize the opportunity. I think that, so going back to kind of the question I asked, and I didn't mean unhappy. I guess I meant like a lot of people are in their role and they think they're ready for more, or they want something different. And I agree with you. Seize the opportunity. I always, if there's doors open around me, opportunity wise, I always take them, because you never know when that opportunity is going to come by again. And I think that's something that has helped me in my life, is just anytime there's an opportunity to try something new, do something different, I take it and run with it. You know, and
it's scary. You know, it's a scary position to be in, because especially something like this, it's like, you know, it's not like I can do a good job interview or get a good test score. It's like, this is up to voters, other people,
totally different,
to decide if they think that I am worthy of this job. And, you know, next year I'll have to run again, and the voters I have to decide again if they want to keep me in this job or not. And if they decide they don't want to, there's nothing I can do about that.
Yeah, but that's kind of the beauty of this process, that it keeps you honest as well.
Yes,
like
it does.
You have to continue to make that positive impact and work hard to find new ways to do it. And although, like we talked about, it keeps coming to your desk, it never ends, you continue to grow. You know, you can continue to get better, and I think you have the capability to do that. I think you know that.
I think you have to, or it really, I just, you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
You know, like and this is really a job where you have the opportunity to, the longer you do it, get better and better and better every year at it. And like, that's really fun, because you can really hone your skill and really like get to the point where you're like, I got this. Like I am absolutely sure of what I'm doing and the decisions I'm making, and they might not be popular decisions, but I know what I'm doing. I am confident in my knowledge of the law, and this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And that's the job.
Yeah, and I'm still early in that process of my sales career, learning about my market, what the market wants, how to interact with people, how to reach out to people for the first time and get that first meeting, presenting and bringing the right information, asking the right questions. Like, I'm 100% better than when I started. Now I know where to go. I know what to look for. I know how to read through reports and do analysis and stuff. But still early in that stage of trying to figure out, if I'm making the right decision. Mm-hmm. Was there a point in your life when you weren't confident that you were making the right decisions, and then after that point you could say, I'm confident that I'm making the right decisions?
I mean, that's kind of a dangerous game to play in your own life. Like, there are times where I look at my law school student loan debt and I'm like, what in the world was I thinking doing this? Like, this is crazy to owe this much money.
Yeah.
And what would have my life been like had I not gone to law school? What would I be doing right now?
What do you think? What do you think you'd be doing?
I don't know. I really
think you'd be
did
right
well in my English courses. That's what I majored in at St. Joe's, English and political science. And I guess I'd probably be teaching or maybe writing or something. But, that's not what I did, and that's not what I chose. So I really try not to play that game of regretting decisions I made, because there's nothing that can be done about it at this point. So, and
everything you can always still do. I think that's something that people forget as well. It's like, instead of regretting, it's like, this is I got a keyboard for Christmas, a piano, and I want to get back into playing the piano. I don't think it's never too late, and it's I never have to be a savant, that can be the best pianist ever. I just want to play for my own sake, for to sing along and for my own enjoyment. And so I think constantly bringing in new things makes bringing in new things less scary, right?
I think something that I kind of struggle with is, because I've randomly picked up a couple new hobbies. I've started to do some watercolor painting and some drawing.
Oh, cool.
And even my own amateur musicianship. I play piano, I play fiddle, but really and I this probably has a lot to do with my childhood, but if I'm not immediately good at something right away, I want to just quit and never do it, never pick it up again.
I think that's the oldest syndrome. It's the first child syndrome.
Yeah, for sure. So again, it's you have to, everything else, of course, it's work. It's you have to just keep doing it, and you have to do it even when you're bad at it, which sucks to do, until you get good at it.
Yeah.
And if you can do that, then eventually you'll be decent. You're not going to be Mozart, but you're going to be able to hang with musicians, which is fun to do.
And that takes time, right?
Oh,
and that takes practice.
Absolutely.
It starts today, right?
Yeah. And it takes, unfortunately, getting outside of your comfort zone. And it's so easy to not leave that area, because why would you want to? It's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But any kind of growth that's meaningful, I think, unfortunately requires you to do that. Even if it's, okay, I'm going to go to this random meeting of something that I'm interested in. I don't know anyone here.
Yeah.
I don't know that much about it, but I'm going to go and I'm going to talk to these people and I'm going to see if this is something I want to do. That's literally how I got involved in Longs Park. I was somebody's like, hey, you should go to this. I was like, okay, well, these guys are industry. They're in I'm on the music committee too. And these guys are industry music guys. They know a ton about music and bands and booking. Yeah. I knew nothing about it. Yeah. Nothing. I knew nothing about putting on a free concert. And I was kind of just thrown in, and they were like, okay, you're kind of going to be the one who sets up everything on Sundays. And I'm like, okay. And the first couple ones, I had no clue what I was doing. Mm-hmm. And now I can essentially do this whole thing with my eyes closed. and get it set up and then focus on, picking up the band from the hotel and taking them to dinner and stuff. And it's like so fun being able to talk to these guys. And it's like all started because I went to a meeting that I was unsure about going to, and I didn't really know anything about the topic, but I was interested in it. And the people involved in this organization are really great. And, I think the real secret is a lot of people just need help doing all this stuff. So if you just show up and are interested, they'll take you and they're like, we'll just teach you how to do it as we go, because we have 3 people who do all the work. So you're number 4 now, and you're going to be running this thing by next summer. That's how it goes. Like, you just have to take that first step and go.
Public service does not have a lot of enthusiastic people. Or I guess the longer you're in public service, the majority of people are not as enthusiastic anymore. And so when you come in, you're fresh, you're in public service acts, and you're enthusiastic, you're excited. People love that because it brings that energy back that those people had when they first started doing those things, right?
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun. It can be fun. If you make it fun, it's fun. And again, there'll be, a moment or two, like during a concert, where I'm like sitting up on the stage watching the band, and I'm like, everyone here is having a good time. I'm having a good time. It's, the end of July. It's like 80 degrees out, and it is like dusk, and you're like, this is pretty much perfect right now.
Yeah.
Like, all my friends are here watching, so I'm here
we're
with
all
my
out in the
friends,
concert.
right?
Yeah.
Nick, you guys come to all the concerts, so it's like this is great, and me and my group did this.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah, it's very cool.
So then, like, I'm at the park till 10, and then I come home and try to eat some dinner, but then, like, the next morning is Monday morning, and it's like, okay, that was a lot of work last night, different type of work. Now I'm ready for a different type of work on Monday morning.
Yeah. Yeah.
You go in fresh.
Yeah, and that's, some of my goal this year is to bring in a bunch of new stuff and stick with it for a year and see what I like. I think like you said, I bring in a bunch of new things, and I'm like, oh, I wasn't good at it right away, and I maybe put it to the side or I forget about it. And I think that's my goal this year, is to pick a few things. And even if I do 15 minutes a week, 1 minute is better than nothing. It's like, so I'm trying to move my mindset away from I have to be the savant, I have to be the best, I have to make the most money, all of these things, to 1 minute is better than none. I spend 15 minutes working out a day. I get up to 3-5 times a week. That's better than none. And I have to start somewhere, and even if I'm bad at it now, give myself the time to learn. So I don't think I give myself the time to learn sometimes. Yeah.
You got to show yourself some grace. Like, I had I would be someone who, and I think I've kind of worked this out, but I would like, okay, I'm going to exercise. So I would do like every day exercise I'd be on the Peloton every day. And then like the first day I missed, I'd be like, well, like, what's the point of even starting again?
Yeah.
And then I
do the same thing. Yeah.
So now I'm like, okay, my goal is to exercise every week. And then I've been pretty constant 3 times a week, like doing an hour on the bike. And like, that's great. And I feel great all day.
Yep.
And if I miss a day or two, it's not a big deal. And then I just do it the next day. And it's like, okay, so I did it 3 times one week, 2 times the other week. Doesn't matter. I'm still doing it.
Yeah.
And much easier way to live your life. You just got to forgive yourself for not being perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's challenging.
Yeah.
For a lot of people. But you're right. I think it's a mindset shift, right? You're moving away from being hard on yourself that it has to be this exact way, and you're moving towards, how can I make this a habit, right? Like, any way possible, I need to make this last a year. I need to be doing this for a year. And how can I make that happen? And maybe it's shifting from that, okay, I need to work out 3 days a week, to I need to work out every week.
Yep.
And some weeks you're going to feel great. I'm sure 6 months in, you'll be doing it 4 or 5 times a week. And on the other day, you'll go for a hike, or because you'll feel better, right?
Yes.
You'll have more energy. So I agree. I think just starting somewhere and making sure that you make goals that are obtainable. I think that's something Carly and I, who's my wife, we worked on this year, was trying to make goals that were obtainable for us. So maybe we want to achieve this really high level, running a marathon, for example. It's not what we're doing, believe me. But for example, maybe we need to start with just running a mile a week, and we have a long life ahead of us. I think that's something we forget too.
Yes.
A long life ahead of us, and we don't necessarily need all of this to happen tomorrow. I think the journey is the funnest part, right? It is being on that journey and going towards your goal and seeing that progress and that growth. And kind of once you get to your goal, you're like, well, now I need something else to reach,
Right.
So the journey is the best part. I think we try to rush the journey sometimes.
Yeah. It's a shame.
What do you have any advice you would give somebody who's maybe is rushing that journey? What advice would you give somebody to kind of that's rushing through that journey and trying to get to the end goal?
I think that the best piece of advice that I can give someone is something I kind of already said. Like, if you're finding yourself being like all you are is your job and what you do for a living, like, that's not the way to do it. You can't. You're going to burn out, and you're not going to be happy.
You've told that to me before.
Yeah, I've told a lot of people that, and that's something I learned from my own brother. He's the one who initially, because first, especially when you start off as a lawyer, like, you're a lawyer.
Yeah.
You love telling people it. You love telling people you're a prosecutor.
Yeah.
But it just can't be your identity. You got to find other things to do, especially if you're in a job where you might not necessarily feel like you're benefiting your community or you're making a positive impact. That's perfectly fine. Most people's jobs are like that. I'm very fortunate in that my job can be helping people and can be making this community better and safer and more livable for the people who live here. Like, that is a privilege that I have. But most people don't have that privilege. Most people have normal jobs.
Yeah.
And that's great. And if you don't feel like you're making your community better with the work you're doing, that's fine. So then when you're not working, if that's something you want to do, find an organization, find a church, join the Longs Park Board, come volunteer for concerts on Sundays. Like, we need people. And you can do that outside of your work, and you will find that you are happier with your job because you're not trying to squeeze satisfaction out of something that just might not be satisfying. It's just a reality. That is perfectly fine. But if you want to live in a way that you feel like you're making a positive impact on your community, you can volunteer.
Yeah.
Or like join a book club. Like, do things outside of work. Like, you need a third thing other than work and home.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is where you can get some satisfaction and you can actually make a positive impact. I think it's really important for people to do that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. A third thing.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to add that to my list.
I mean,
it's
like not, that. I didn't come up with that
No.
idea. I don't know who did. Diana would probably know, but it's like, we need third places and third things that are not work and home.
Yeah.
And if it's an organization, if it's a club, if it's, volunteering, if it's like hiking in the woods or something, like, you just have to do things for you or your community that aren't your job.
Yeah. Yeah, especially working from home. I don't have work and home. I have home and home. I have upstairs and downstairs. Yeah.
I think you got to really be careful, because if that work and home thing become the same, then you really need a third thing.
Yeah.
Because it just all becomes one thing then.
Yep.
And then you feel like you're constantly at work, and nobody wants that. That's not good for anybody.
And time flies because you wake up, you're in your house, you leave work, you're in your house, your time's just going.
You got to like put up barriers or I think, and again, I'm not speaking ill of where you work or anything, but I think that some employers might want that, to blend those two things to the point where there's no difference between work and home.
Some of it is good for the employee. Like
Sure.
as in IT sales, you make your own hours in a way working from home.
Absolutely.
You know, if somebody pings me at 8:00 at night because I work from home, and it's a short thing, something I can just answer, give them a quick message, or I kind of feel obligated to reply because I'm home, my computer's right there. They know everybody knows I'm right here. So I also feel like that gives me some freedom to, if at noon I need to go get a haircut or go to the doctor's, I can go from noon to 1:00, noon to 2:00, knowing that I can work those later hours. I can make that up at a different time. I can start earlier the next day. So it is, again, back to this, balancing act.
And that's the other issue with like advice, like the advice I just gave, where that's what works for me.
Yeah.
That might not work for Nick or Carly or Diana. Like that.
Yeah.
That's what personally works for me. So, but I do think, again, just to reiterate, like, find something else to do to get some satisfaction, because it might not be your job, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and that's kind of where this all came from.
Yeah.
This is awesome. How long have we been talking, Guru?
Hour.
An hour. Wow.
Flew.
That's awesome. So thank you so much again for
absolutely,
being a
man.
part of the first podcast, the first episode. I think this is really cool. I think we've talked a lot about a lot of great ways for people to stay positive, get through the hard times, make sure they know they have something they're working towards with growth. And is there any positivity quote or saying that you go by that kind of leave us with?
I'm not sure. Like, I think it's really difficult to just find an overarching thing for everyone. Like, I don't know. I think having that third thing is really important in people's lives.
I love that.
I wish I would have found a quote or something to reinforce that, but I didn't even know I was going to come up. Like, I didn't even consider that before I came over here. So that was kind of just, it came about organically. It was a good conversation.
Yeah, I think so too. And again, I appreciate you being on. This was an awesome conversation.
pleasure.
I look up to you a ton. And again, keep doing your best out there. I think we're all just trying to do our best, and that's why we're here today talking. And hopefully we made a positive impact in somebody else's life today. So,
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
Yep.